So let's first begin with cryptography concepts. So first of all, what is cryptography? Okay, cryptography, as this definition says here, it is the science of creating and implementing secret codes that enables you to store and transmit data in a form that is available only to intended individuals. Now, let's say this is a definition. Let me expand it a little bit. So let's say there are two people. Let me open my drawing board here. Give me one moment. All right. I hope you can see this blank screen. So let's say that there are two users here. User A and user B, and they want to communicate securely. So user A wants to send a message to user B. Okay. But user A wants to make sure that the message that is sent to user B, it should only be readable by user B, not by anybody else. All right. So what tactics or what mechanisms could user A deploy? So user A could make use of cryptography, wherein what user A would do is user A would scramble this message. For example, this is called a plain text. Plain text means message that can be readable, that can be read by anybody. So this is the plain text message that can be read by anyone. Then user A would apply encryption on it or cryptography on it. And what the user A would get is called would be some scrambled characters, for example 001 A B C 1100. Okay, so the message would be scrambled, and this would be called ciphertext. So earlier it was plain text, which could be read by anyone. But now that it has gone through the process of cryptography, it has converted into ciphertext, which cannot be read by anybody, which can only be read by the person who knows, who has the right knowledge, who is authorized to read it, which in this case would be user B. So user B is the one who would be able to, who would receive this encrypted message, the ciphertext. User B would decrypt it, and then user B would be able to get this plain text message. All right. So the process of applying this, so the science or the process of converting this message, this plain text message, into a ciphertext, so that only those people can read the message which are authorized to read that message, that overall process is called cryptography. All right. And then these are terms. Plain text means the message that can be read by anybody. And then when you convert it into a form which can only be understood by the relevant authorized parties, then that is called ciphertext. All right. So that's what this definition says. So next one is plain text. As I said, readable version of a message. Ciphertext, the resulting text after encryption process on plain text is called ciphertext. It cannot be read until it is decrypted. All right. And then what is encryption? Sorry. Encryption. What is encryption? The method of transforming plain text into a form that appears to be random and unreadable is called encryption. So you take the plain text message, you apply encryption on it, and then it converts into encrypted text or ciphertext. So what is the purpose of encryption? As I said before, the purpose of encryption is to make sure that only the relevant parties can understand the encrypted message, because only they will be able to decrypt it. All right. Now, how do you encrypt the message? How do you convert a plain text message into a ciphertext? There can be various methods, there can be different formulas, there can be different algorithms. So I'll give you a quick, a very crude example. So let's say you want to send a number, for example, let's say you want to send 101011. You want to send this number over to user B. Okay, let's say user A wants to send this number to user B, and this is plain text. This is not in binary form. Let's say this is a plain text message that needs to be sent to user B, but user A wants to encrypt it. So user A has to apply some logic to encrypt it, right? It can't be just converted into a ciphertext using something random, right? There has to be some logic to be able to convert it into ciphertext. So let's say user A says that, all right, I will multiply it by maybe by some number, and whatever that result is, I will send that result, or maybe what I will do is I will multiply it by a certain number. I will then add some other number to it. I will then subtract some other number to it, and whatever is the result, I will then send that result over to user B, which will act as a ciphertext. All right. And then user B will have to know, to be able to decrypt the ciphertext, user B will have to know exactly the formula that user A had used. So user B will then apply the same formula in the reverse order. So user B will then add a certain number, because this was subtracted here, and then subtract a certain number, and then divide it by a certain number to be able to get 101011, the plain text message, which was this one, right? So this algorithm here, this formula of multiplying it by a certain number first, then adding, then subtracting something, this is an algorithm, and this algorithm is the encryption algorithm. All right, so this is called encryption algorithm, or it is also known as cipher. So in the exam, if you see the term algorithm or cipher, it's one and the same thing. And that is what this also says here about algorithm. It is a set of mathematical rules that dictate how encryption and decryption take place. And most algorithms are public, not secret. So this is an important point here, that most of the algorithms are public. So if, let's say, user A is using some algorithm which is called algo 1, all right, and in algo 1, the rule is to multiply it by a certain number, then add certain number, then subtract, and the result is your ciphertext. But if it is public, then anybody can do it, right? Anybody can reverse it if they're able to see the ciphertext. So there has to be some secrecy here, right? But it is not the algorithm. Algorithm is mostly public. The cipher is mostly public. So what is the secrecy here? The secrecy here is provided by using key. Okay. So how does that work? Now the key in this case will be, what are these numbers that are applied here? So you could say that, let's say user A says that I will be using my key, which is let's say 123. This is the key, which means that user A may say, all right, the first task in this algorithm is to multiply. So I'll multiply it by 1, and then I will add 2, and then I will subtract 3. So this is the key, and this has to be kept secret, because when user B receives this message, user B will try to reverse the whole process using the same key. So user B will then first add 3, and then subtract 2, and then divide by 1, right? So algorithm is public, but something has to be kept secret to be so that the unauthorized individuals cannot read the message, and that secrecy comes from key. All right. Now, okay, yeah, let me not get ahead of myself. So that is the key. So this is the next term here. Key or crypto variable, it's one and the same thing. So to maintain security when using a publicly known encryption algorithm, keys are used. The key is a value that comprises a large sequence of random bits derived from key space. So key is not just like one key that is used all the time. A key is one part of a bigger key space. So for example, if I were to go back to this drawing board here, let's say user A and user B want to communicate, they could decide on a big, maybe user A already has a big key space, and that key space could be let's say 4537810777011. This could be the key space for user A, which means that out of all these numbers, user A could pick any random number and use that as key. All right, so that it is not easy for somebody to figure out, to guess what the key could be. So this is called key space, which means that out of all these possible combinations, what is the one number that user A wants to use for one time for that communication purpose. All right, so it could pick, maybe for example 45, or it could pick 77, or it could pick 781 as the key. So overall, all these possibilities of the key are called key space, and the value that you pick from that key space is called a key. All right, and as you can maybe guess, that the bigger the key space, the better it is, because then the bigger the key space, the more difficult it is for attackers to find out the right key. Because if the key space contains just 10 keys, then anybody can brute force and guess what the key could be, right? So the bigger the key space, the higher the probability of, or the lesser the probability that the attackers will be able to figure out the keys. So that's key. Next one is key space. As I just explained, it is a range of values that can be used to construct a key for an algorithm. The larger the key space, the more number of keys available and harder it is for attackers to figure out the right key. For example, if the key size is of 128 bits, then that means what is the total number of possible combinations? It is 2 raised to the power 128. Similarly, if key size is of 512 bits, then it will have 2 raised to the power 512 possible key combinations. All right. Then the next term is crypto system. What is a crypto system? So there has to be something in your system, in the computer or whatever device is being used for communication. There has to be something in that system to be able to perform the algorithm, and then to be able to decrypt it, to be able to create the key, or to be able to use the key. Something has to be there to be able to perform all the process that I just described, right? It can't be done by humans. So that software or that hardware that is performing all of that process, that is called crypto system. So it can be done in software, or if it is a really big device, for example, which sends a lot of secure communications back and forth, then it could be done in hardware as well. So for example, in various firewalls and various routers, you have those hardware modules which are responsible just for encryption and decryption purposes. All right, so that is done in hardware. Now the next one is Kerkhoffs principle. You should be aware of it for the exam if you're preparing for it. And it's good to know otherwise as well, that Auguste Kerkhoff was a person who worked in the field of encryption many years back, and he had this principle that the only secret part of a cryptographic system should be the key, and the algorithm should be publicly known, which I just described as well. So he was of the opinion that the algorithm should be publicly known, but the only secrecy should come from the key. As per him, if too many secrets were involved, there would be more vulnerabilities to exploit. So, but it's an ongoing debate. Some people think that we should keep the algorithms private as well. And there are some organizations, for example, some military organizations or some government organizations, who want to use their own proprietary encryption algorithm. They do not want to make it public. So there are both sides to this argument, but it's good to know that there is this principle, especially for the exam purpose. All right.